Hey guys, today will be a bit of a continuation of our last video. Some people were confused what exactly the addon does and what the idea behind the method is. Today we'll focus a bit more on beginners. Advanced learners will get a dedicated video on how to incorporate the method/addon into their studies later. We'll go over 3 parts. First, why we felt that it was necessary to develop this method with the accompanying tool. Then I'll give you an overview over the philosophy behind it and the 3 stages a learner would go through. And in the last part, I'll quickly guide you through the setup with the beginner's deck we linked in the last video. So why was it necessary to develop the new method together with the Kanji GOD Addon? Current methods work, there's no doubt about it. But just because the currently available methods work doesn't mean that they are optimal and can't be improved. Let's just quickly summarize the negatives and the positives of the current mainstream kanji learning methods. The main 2 players we can talk about are Remembering the Kanji, or RTK for short, and Wanikani. Today I'll focus on the 2 main negatives of each, and this should be enough to illustrate that there are problems with the current system. And we will start with RTK. Unnecessary memorization of rare characters. After finishing RTK, you will have memorized 2200 kanji. This is a nice number, but the main problem here is that there are a lot of kanji that are just not necessary for beginners. Speaking from personal experience, I have around 17,000 cards from sentence mining in my deck, and each card has 1 new word in it. And despite this huge amount of words, there are still some kanji from RTK I don't have any use for. Not one. Not one word in my whole deck uses them, so you spend a lot of time memorizing information just so you end up forgetting it because you never see it. Killed motivation and nothing to show for it. In general, RTK is done in one swoop, before you do anything else. Most people need between 3 to 6 months to finish RTK, as there's quite a bit to do. But afterwards you have nothing to show for it. At this point, all you can do is point at a character and give the English meaning of it. Now, the way I phrase this sentence sounds like this is completely useless, but that is not necessarily true. You learn to differentiate kanji, recognize specific characters, and associate them with a rough keyword that can help you learn new words afterwards. But for a lot of learners, this still kills their motivation, as you just spend 3 to 6 months learning and still can't pronounce the word door in Japanese. And as a result, a lot of people don't even finish RTK and give up before that, as using it sometimes feels completely disconnected from the Japanese language, and with that, the main reason why they started this journey. Now, on to Wanikani. Unnecessary words. Wanikani has a lot of similarities to RTK, but one big difference is that it also teaches you words alongside your kanji. 6,000 to be exact. Now, this isn't a bad idea, as you can start associating the kanji you learn with real Japanese. But the problem is that Wanikani tries to teach you a certain amount of kanji and words that use each kanji and a specific reading. You will end up having to memorize a lot of words that are completely unnecessary for you and you probably don't care about. A restrictive system. If you use Wanikani, you have to follow their system. You can't learn words you want to learn. You can't skip things that you may already know from engaging with the language. You have to type answers, which can be error-prone and costs a lot of extra time. You have to repeat some things, a lot more than it is actually necessary. In short, you have to use a restrictive system you have to follow to a T and can customize it to your needs. As I said before, those are just 2 points for each of those methods, but there are a lot more downsides that make those methods suboptimal. Okay, so what was our philosophy with the new way of learning kanji? Pretty simple. Learn kanji while you are learning the language and only learn the information you need and shortly before you need it. And this is where the tool we developed comes into play. Once the setup is done, the addon shows you a new kanji a short while before it even appears in your studies. And what the addon shows you is only the information you are going to need. So no memorization of unnecessary characters and words. If you want some more information about this, you can watch the last video we did on this topic, linked in the description below. Now, let's talk about the 3 phases a learner will go through with this method. Phase 1, the preparation. In theory, this phase is optional, but we recommend that you follow it. In this phase, you learn the first 50 kanji in RTK order. The reason is pretty simple. In phase 2, you will start learning the kanji that will appear in your beginner's deck. But even though it's called a beginner's deck, there are still some complicated kanji in it, right from the start. And what is easier to get into as a beginner? Learning the kanji for one or the one for word? So in this phase, you would go through those first 50 cards. We recommend that you start off slowly with 5 to 10 cards on the first day. If you feel like you can do more, you can increase this as you go. But for most people, the limit should be 20 cards. Even with 10 cards a day, you will be done with this step in 5 days. Phase 2, sentences and kanji. After you're done with the first 50 kanji, you can download a beginner's deck and load it into the SRS. Once the add-on is connected with the deck, it will create the kanji you need to learn for the first cards in the deck's queue. Which means, if the first card of the deck contains the kanji for I, the add-on will create the 2 parts of the kanji it is made out of, so you can use the keywords you learned from them and create mnemonics so you can remember the kanji itself that comes right afterwards. As I said before, if you want a bit more information on this, watch the last video we made called A New Innovative Way to Learn Kanji. So the beginner's deck is loaded into Anki and the kanji cards are created. What now? Sadly, you will have to continue with only learning kanji for a few days. But not a lot. Around 3 to 5 days should be enough. Because as I showed you with the kanji for I, if you start with the sentence deck right away, this will be the first kanji you see. But you haven't learned it yet, so just so you can get a head start, give yourself a few days with only kanji. In those first days, you can just keep going with the same amount of kanji you learned before. For example, you did 15 kanji per day, so for 3 to 5 days you would continue like this. After you're done with this, you reduce the amount of kanji you learn each day and start learning sentences from your beginner's deck as well. If you did 15 cards up till now, you can go down to 5 kanji a day and start learning 10 sentences alongside this. Phase 3. Out of the beginner phase. Once you work your way through all the cards in your beginner's deck and learned all the kanji that are contained in it, you are in phase 3. This phase goes on forever, because from here on out you will just start sentence mining and the add-on will tell you whenever you add a card to your deck that contains a kanji you haven't learned yet, and will automatically create a kanji card for it. So now you can slowly start engaging more with the language, read, listen, and add sentences with one unknown word to your deck. The add-on will then tell you, hey man, this card you just added has a kanji that is new for you. Might be a good idea to take a closer look at it. This way, you will slowly build your kanji knowledge and watch it grow in the stats window over time. And we'll start with the first phase. If you don't have anything in Anki yet, then I will show you from the beginning what you need to do to get set up for the first phase. First, we'll have to create our kanji decks. And for this, just click on Create Deck down below. And I'll just name this kanji, nothing fancy, that's enough. But we will also create 2 additional decks. We'll create a recognition deck, but we will also create a production deck. And now, just to make it a little bit simpler, just click and pull them up to the kanji deck so you can create sub-decks. Those are the decks where the add-on later on will put all the cards it creates. And with that we are done with the deck creation, and we can go over to the Migaku menu and kanji settings to tell the add-on where it has to put the cards. The first tab you don't have to do anything for now, just go over to the recognition tab, and on top you have the button that currently says default. Just click on it and select the deck you want to export all the recognition cards to. In this case, just a recognition deck. Press choose, and that's it. Next up, production. Just click over here, same as before, press default, and then select the production deck. And we can close this again. That's pretty much it. And the next step, so we can create the first 50 cards, we just go over to the Migaku menu again, add new kanji cards. Let me first choose RTK 1 to 5 order, or let's make RTK 6, that's the newest version. For now we will click recognition. You could choose production if you wanted to, but we will do recognition in the beginning. At least that's our recommendation, that you start with recognition and production only later on. Down below, just enter 50 and press OK, and that's it. Those are all the cards the add-on created, and as you can see, that's the order. It starts over here and up to here. Those are the 50 cards you will have to learn before you start with the rest. And that's it. You can keep going. Okay, phase 2. So in this phase, as explained before, you will go through, as I've downloaded already here, the JLPT, Tango and 5 decks. This is the Migaku version, so they use the Migaku card format, and you will just connect it with our add-on. But first, let me load the deck into Anki. This will take a few seconds. And that's it. Okay, those are this is the number of cards we have. And first we have to go into the browser. I'll show you something that's special, and some people had problems with this. If you look over here, it says Migaku Japanese sentence, and this then has a special ending. That has to do with the Migaku Japanese add-on, because of the settings. They are different between different Ankis, so if you have a different setting than somebody else, then it will create a new card type, and this one won't work if you open the card, so the here furigana, colors and so on doesn't work, but you can simply change this. They just have to select them all. For this, scroll down until the other note type comes. There we are. Then right click and change note type. That's the right one. We want to change it to Migaku Japanese sentence. That's fine. And then you just have to map this. So sentence, this side is the original, so this card, and the right side is the one it has to change to. So this should be all correct. Definitions to definitions, that's fine. Sentence audio, word audio, okay. And we are done with this. And we can just continue over here. Those are vocabulary cards, but we still have to change them. Just change note type. This time we have to select the vocabulary card, choose, and this should already be fine as well. Target word, definition, image, sentence audio, perfect. And now what I showed you before, it should work. Let's see. Yes, works, perfect. Okay, that's the first step you have to do, but otherwise the rest has only to do with the Migaku Kanji add-on, with the God add-on. Okay, just go over here to the Migaku menu and over to Kanji settings. You don't have to do anything here because the cards in the deck already use the correct note type. You go over to recognition and click here on add and select the deck from the list. You have to select the sub deck. You can't select the original deck, otherwise it won't work. Just select this one. And I'll say for now we'll create 50 cards in advance. So for the first 50 cards in the deck's queue, the add-on will create all the necessary kanji. And we can close, and that's already it. So you only need 34 cards to that cover all the kanji that will appear in the first 50 cards of the deck. And you have to keep in mind that in those 34 already all the radicals and so on are contained. So there are a lot less kanji, which already shows you that probably in the end you will only have around 25 kanji or so, maybe less even, that will come up in the first 20 cards. So if you're you don't need to learn as many kanji as we already mentioned a few times. You can just learn the ones you need. That's it, and up to the next part. Okay, and we can start with phase 3. So let's say you're already done with this deck. I'm not, obviously. There's still a ton of cards in here, and you're also done with the kanji cards, and you want to start with sentence mining and still learn new kanji alongside. You could theoretically add them to the already existing deck, but personally I prefer adding them in a new deck, so let's just create one and call it just sentence mining, and okay. Now next you have to go into the Migaku menu, kanji settings, and then on this side, the first thing you have to do is click Add down below, select the deck, this time it's sentence mining, and select the card type you want to use. For this it's Japanese sentence, and this should already be correct. Next, go over to recognition, and for me it's already checked, but you have to check that this is checked, automatically create cards for unknown primitives. Next, automatically create kanji cards for unknown kanji in newly added cards. And it already says you have to check that they're in registered fields. And the last one, confirm kanji cards that get added automatically. You don't have to check this one, but I'd recommend you do it. You will see in a second what it does basically. Then we can close this, and I will give you an example. I had to check beforehand that the kanji I'm going to add isn't already in the Tango deck. So we'll choose the Japanese sentence, choose, and we'll just take Utsubyo and target word and click add. Okay, and now you will get this nice little pop-up. You can read it, but I will tell you, if you leave it as it is and press OK, all those cards will be added to your deck, to the deck you choose, but you can change it. Those are for recognition in this case. But you will get an extra window if you also marked for the production cards. But you can change this. Press once on each, which turns them blue, which means, as it says here, they will be marked as known, which means the add-on will from there on out won't recognize those as unknown, but it won't create a card for it. This is later on if it's a really easy kanji and you think you can just memorize it, or you don't want to add another card because you're sick of kanji cards. Then this is just a nice way to get an overview, what is currently happening, what new kanjis are added, so you can just focus on it for a second and look at it. Or you can do the next step, you can click once more and turn it red, which means it's not added to your known cards and it's just ignored this time. If you want to do this, you can do this as well. So you can choose what you want to do, and just by clicking on this, I'll just turn this green for now. So you can see we had 36 before, and we press OK, and we are at 46. So it created 10 cards for this one kanji, because it's a really complicated one. But that's it. So after you're done with phase 2, and you can just set this all up, and from there on out add your new cards, and it will automatically create all the kanji cards you need. This is the first part in a small series where we'll go over all the steps a beginner has to follow to learn kanji with our Migaku method and the Kanji God Addon. In the next installment, we will cover how to learn and review your kanji cards, as well as what to look out for when it comes to mnemonics. As always, if you want to get access to the add-on, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below, so you can get beta access today. And also, thanks to all our supporters, as we wouldn't be able to work on all the new shiny tools without your support.